Thank you very much. Yeah, thank you very much for the invitation. I will try to speak a little bit about responsibility, about the mistakes which have been made in the Eastern Partnership or in the neighborhood policy of the European Union. It is, of course, for the European Union in total, it is not only the Eastern Partnership, we have also a neighborhood policy developed to the south, to the Mediterranean area, and in both cases we did nearly the same mistake, or the same mistakes. It's not only one, we did some mistakes. Yeah, but to be a little bit provocating, answering the question, or put another question to what was said just now, is the European Union ready to fulfill their obligations now in solidarity with Ukraine and the other countries around, especially Georgia and Moldova? It is, for me, also the question, are these countries ready to fulfill their obligations which they signed with the association agreements and changing their societies? So about both things I wanted to start a discussion with you. One of the biggest mistakes, I think, is for the European neighborhood policy is that the European Union thought that their founding principles, like to have a concrete cooperation between neighboring countries, and this concrete cooperation between neighboring countries, and to open the borders, to have a common economy, and this principle works also in the neighborhood countries, in the south and in the east. But this was a mistake. The neighborhood countries in the east were not really interested in regional cooperation. They were interested more in cooperation with the European Union. So this concept of developing structures in regional cooperation, this was not really successful. And I think this is okay. This principle of regional cooperation, what the European Union was thinking about, was not based on a high knowledge what happened in the Eastern European countries. And so I think the consequence is totally right. We must not have one concept for the cooperation in this room. We must have one cooperation with each of these countries. They are developing so different, and the first step the European Union did was to change a little bit the strategy in this sense, more for more, less for less. And I think this principle is okay. Especially now, we have these three countries which have signed the association agreement and DCFTA, and these three countries must have special conditions to be supported and fulfill their obligations. Yeah, this I don't know if somebody knows or what is inside of this association agreement. It is really, really hard-working paper. Yeah. It is 80%, between 70 and 80% of the acquis communautaire. So the negotiation these countries did were really much more than 50% on the negotiation of membership. Yeah, this is very close. As association agreement is on the level of what is negotiated, not in the political meaning, but in the meaning of negotiation, very close to a membership perspective. So, and this strategy, more for more, is, from my point of view, is okay. Less for less, it is not okay. Because neighborhood policy must also be defined by the interest of the European Union. Yeah, this is not only charity organization. This is also interest of the political, economic interest of the European Union, to be very clear on this. And it is also in the interest of the neighborhood countries. Maybe they decide by themselves if it is in their interest. So, but more for more is okay. And I was working in Moldova and in Georgia. I was training the staff of the ministries, the staff of the parliaments for negotiating with the European Union, or how to work on legislation and this. So I think I have a quite high knowledge what happens in this country. And I'm always disappointed that, for example, Georgia and Moldova, which have nearly the same problems with Transnistria, Abkhazia, South Ossetia, with the agriculture export restrictions from Russia or not, and negotiation with the European Union, these countries didn't really work together. And it would, from the European perspective, of course, it would be easier to have countries which are working together in this issue. Ukraine, of course, because of the actual situation, is in a different situation, but okay, this is one. Less for less, of course, it is a mistake, because we must define our interests, especially, for example, for Armenia. Armenia may, of course, is less than Georgia, but maybe, and I'm convinced that the European interest in Armenia still exists, and it is interesting for us to have Armenia, beside everything what happens, to have Armenia closer to the European Union. So we must work on this and not leave Armenia alone. Yeah, this is very in the neighborhood policy, it is very important not to say less for less, to say more for more, yeah, but also to say what is in our interest and support this. Supporting the civil society in Armenia is one of the main goals, I think, in the South Caucasus, for example, now. So, what else must be done? More difference in the strategy for each country, to put conditions on what we are doing there. Yeah? This is also not very easy to explain, but this is necessary. We have to deal, to be clear on this also, we have to deal with 3 countries which are, if you look to the ranking of Transparency International, which take not the first places in this. These are countries with a high corruption, with oligarch system in the economy, and I don't want to have the situation that billions of Europeans' taxpayers' money run to the pocket of oligarchs. And if we have this discussion in Europe, especially in Western Europe, that the money we give to Ukraine, we give to Georgia, we give to Moldova, that this goes somewhere where we can control it. Maybe through oligarchs it goes to Russia. This will be, of course, a disaster in the political communication of Eastern neighborhood policy, and we have not the situation that all the European countries are in favor, or they are so optimistic. Like a lot of people, I think a lot of people in Germany are really optimistic that this is necessary to do and this has a chance to do. But it is a problem. So it must be conditioned on how to deal with this money. This is a huge problem because it targets the sovereignty of these countries. You must, if you want to control the money you give, maybe a little bit, but to control it, then of course you take some parts of the sovereignty of the countries. And I know the situation in Ukraine quite well. I heard a lot about this, that who controls the money which comes from the European Union is really a little bit discussed, let's say, between the oligarchs and the European Union, who is really controlling the process of implementing the association agreement into concrete policy in Ukraine, who is really putting pressure on this process. And I'm convinced that the European Union must take more responsibility for this process in all these neighborhood countries, because if there are mistakes, okay, when the European Union did these mistakes, this is our problem. But if we have the mistakes in this system and somebody steals the money, then it is the problem of everybody who is engaged in neighborhood policy. So a third point, what I think what is necessary to change the neighborhood policy is, of course, special to what happens actually now. We must implement, yeah, okay, 1 minute, I tried. We must implement the European security policy into the neighborhood policy. Security must be an aspect of neighborhood policy. It is not only economic administration, it is also a security problem, and I support everything what is said against Russia in this case. So this must be not only United States reacted now with the decision of the Senate and the House. This is quite good. The Europeans must add on a different level, but also implement security policy and the neighborhood policy. And the last point, the other maybe in the discussion, the last point, what we need is also, and the biggest mistake the European Union did is that they didn't give membership perspective to the neighborhood countries, because the membership perspective is given in the European treaties. Every European country has the possibility to join the European Union. This is clear and this is in the treaties. But the real wording of the European Union is to put mistrust in this concept. This was arguing for Putin, yeah? This is what the door which we opened, that Putin did a lot of remarks like they don't want you, they want you misuse you. We have it in our treaties. We must really declare that this is still the politics of the European Union, that every European country can join the European Union, and we must say, of course, that we want that every European state joins the European Union. It is not easy, you must fulfill a lot of things, but we want you, not tomorrow, but we want you inside of this union. This is, of course, a main problem. It has reason why it is so problematic. It starts after Romania and Bulgaria joined the union. We had this crisis with Greece, with a lot of corruption there, and a lot of people were really a little bit frustrated about this, what happened in Ukraine during Tymoshenko and Yushchenko time. There was no progress in joining the union, negotiations, nothing. So this has some reason, but it was a really big mistake from the European Union that they don't offer the membership perspective, not concrete for the next years. Don't tell us, let's speak about years, but let's speak about the political wish of the Union to take every European country in our club.